Happy birthday, Paul.
Are we recording? Oh, not recording up.
Damn it. Well, I'm recording on the video. Happy birthday, Paul.
Oh, thanks.
Oh,
look, you got a wallpaper and everything.
Nice.
I
went all out. Fans of the podcast will know.
You did go all out.
Fans of the podcast will know.
Wrapped up.
This Friday, when this episode is live, this is Paul. It's not today, but it'll be Paul's birthday on Friday, November 20th. So happy birthday.
Thanks. 42.
Also,
it's cool. How did you pull that off? You wrapped the Dragons banner with a happy. Let's see birthday there. I just see a lot of
I don't actually see birthday either. I stole it from Dorothy. I texted her. I said, "Do we have any happy birthday banners?" And this was the best we came up with. So,
well, I appreciate the gesture, of course. I don't appreciate getting a year older. Can I just not claim that I'm 42? Because 2020 sucked. So can we just can I just stay at 41 and just celebrate next year when hopefully, if you idiots wear masks and stay distant from each other, we can get rid of this COVID thing. What do you say?
I saw someone posted, that I think everyone should be able to not add a year. Unless you're turning 21, it really wouldn't affect anybody else to just to save this whole year off everyone on the calendar.
Well, if you're turning 25, then it might help your auto insurance rates.
Okay, well, I mean, but I'm just, broad brushstrokes, it would help more people than not if we all just could do a mulligan on this year.
Completely agree. So, with that being said, thank you for the birthday wishes.
And I was going to say, so if you're listening to this podcast, and I know this is what Paul wants for his birthday, I still have Van the Man, our number one fan. We still have a gift coming. It could be this year. It could be next year. That is still coming.
Looking forward to that.
But we do have a gift. But if you want to wish Paul the happiest birthday, I know he really would appreciate you go to xflshow.com/review and leave us a review.
There you go.
It wouldn't cost you a penny. It would be the cheapest birthday gift you've ever given anybody in the world. We got some reviews today we're going to go through, but xflshow.com/review if you are a fan of the XFL. We've done a lot of work this week outside of the podcast to kind of get all this stuff going. I think Paul would agree with that. And we would appreciate it. If you're a fan of the XFL, if you're a fan of the Spring League, if you're a fan of fan-controlled football, I'm seeing a lot of chatter. I feel like we kind of started a little bit of that. But all this stuff, xflshow.com/review. I know Paul would appreciate it as a birthday gift.
I would. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Everybody that reviews, we appreciate it for sure. So, that being said, we got an interesting show today. It's definitely taken on a life of itself in the last 48 to 72 hours. And of course, we got Kent Shelby coming up. And who else do we have coming up?
Brian Woods, CEO of the Spring League, is going to be coming on.
We're being responsible journalists here, and we're getting both sides of the story on the Spring League shutdown and all the drama. Of course, this was started by a post from Guology. I guess his rap name is Poop Main. This is great. I don't know why.
If you're going to go breaking news about anything in the world, let's get a decent Twitter handle and stage name. Okay, if you're going to do that,
Poop Main.
I appreciate it, but yes, a certain just to catch people up, a certain TSL player this week posted a video on YouTube Tuesday of recording this. A lot of allegations, a lot of thoughts, feelings across the board. It ignited everything. The TSL games have been canceled. As of now, I want to talk about, is there going to be a championship game? Supposedly there's still going to be a championship game. I have thoughts about that, but just across the board, we have Kent Shelby coming on. He has some very negative thoughts about the Spring League. And so we reached out to CEO Brian Woods, offered him obviously a platform to come on and share his opinion. So we're here.
Well, I don't want to paint Kent Shelby as a negative person, though. He is a very positive person. We want to put that out there first and foremost. But he does have his opinions, and they are potentially realistic, maybe possibly realistic. So we don't want to say it was a completely negative interview, but we got him coming up. He's going to share his thoughts about his realistic perspective on the Spring League. So we're looking forward to that. And of course, we got Brian Woods coming on. And, we're going to do our normal chatter. I think the biggest story in XFL circles right now is going to be the PJ Walker situation in Carolina. We had Sheena Quick on last week. She discussed how currently PJ is kind of like, they just platoon out the backup quarterbacks, basically. So now we're in a situation where Teddy Bridgewater's been hurt twice now in not consecutive weeks, but 2 out of 3 weeks. But Teddy Bridgewater's gone out of the game early. He went into a concussion protocol, it looked like, last week. So PJ Walker came in.
Yeah, well, and then the ankle or the knee injury this week, the kind of the rough tackle from behind, I think it got a penalty flag. Yeah, definitely a lot to get into today. I was thinking about this before we started. So there was a time back when I was in college, we used to put together these like video things, and I had made my own sitcom that was like an angel and the devil living at Gonzaga. It was very racy for like 2006, and we fake blew up a dorm on campus, like with special effects and everything. And it got the attention of the dean. They got very mad at the broadcast department. And there was a lot of chatter about, are we going to allow this episode to be aired? Should Reed get in trouble? Should we pull? There was just a lot of different things. And so I remember that day that the show was going to go on the air. My professor, Dan Garrity, looks over at me and he's like, there are going to be more eyeballs on this episode today than there ever have. Because, it's like closed circuit Gonzaga television, like nobody cared. And I feel like with all the spring league stuff today, I think there's going to be more eyeballs on this episode and ear holes, hopefully, than there ever have before. So I hope we can rise to the occasion.
And I completely agree with that. I think that this is pretty this is some intense stuff that we kind of discovered in the last 48 to 72 hours. So I'm a little tired. I don't know why. It's a little tired, a little fatigued lately, but it's not COVID. Don't worry. And I'm just trying to gather my thoughts because when this was blowing up, I was like, wait, we had to kind of scramble to get everything in order to kind of get the best and most comprehensive coverage of this spring league issue that we can. So with that being said, let's move on to our other stuff before. Or do you want to bring in Kent first? Do you want to bring in Kent first, then bring in Brian first, and then we'll go on to our normal stuff? How do you want to do this?
Let's get the XFL stuff out of the way first. I think XFL first and foremost, right? We talk about the PJ stuff, and then we'll kind of get into the spring league and the discussion on that. Before we start, I did want to go through the new reviews we got this week. Is that okay to toss those out real quick? We had 4 new reviews come in this week. Again, xflshow.com/review. If you're a fan of the podcast, Paul is struggling with his headphones while we read this. We had 4 come in this week. We had the photo bar. He said, XFL newbie. I really wasn't into the XFL until I found this podcast through friends' recommendations. Reed and Paul really break things down. Getting to know the teams and players through this podcast has really changed my views on the XFL. I look forward to hearing every podcast. So thank you, the photo bar. JC Slugger. Guys, keep up the great work. I love listening to the podcast every Friday. Thank you very much. Sean Marcus, this is a great XFL podcast, fun host, and good content. And then we just had one come in this morning from Balloon Sundew. I don't know what that is. Do you know what that is, Paul? No.
I don't. No idea.
I originally heard about you guys on Twitter, and now I listen every week. I'm so excited for the XFL 2022. But while we wait, TSL has filled the void a little bit. I love how you guys include talking about this league in your show every week. Keep it up. And that was totally unsolicited. Just came in this morning. The tagline was, I love watching for the TSL content. So clearly, even though we are an XFL podcast, primarily there's a lot of interest in the spring league and fan control football and all these other alternative football leagues. So that's why we're giving kind of, and with all the, the news going on right now with the cancellation of the remainder of the spring league games. That's why we're talking about that.
And you actually bought tickets to go out to San Antonio for the potential of a championship game.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that with Brian too. I mean, because according to everything right now, the championship game is supposedly still on for December 2nd. And when all this came down yesterday, Dorothy and I had bought tickets to go to San Antonio. We were going to go to the XFL championship game back when that a million years ago. We were going to go to Houston. We had everything booked. We had Airbnb. We had everything. Obviously, when that all canceled, we got credit back for all of our stuff. And then we used that credit for this to go to San Antonio for the spring league. We were going to go down. Dorothy was going to get time off of school. And clearly I'm just not supposed to go watch football in Texas because now this is two times in a row. My heart has been broken. But yeah, no, we were going to go. And so I hope that wasn't the wrong decision to cancel our flights, that there's not going to be a championship game. I don't think there's going to be, but we'll see what Brian has to say when he comes on. So
yeah, we'll definitely get that all cleared up, and hopefully there's some kind of resolution here that everybody's happy with. But it seems like there's a lot of tension, a lot of hurt feelings, and not saying hurt feelings like people aren't justifiably hurt. People are upset about the way they were treated, and there were some pretty good one-liners that were thrown out during that Kent Shelby interview. You'll be interested to hear about the analogy that I made specifically. I'm gonna puff my own chest out because I thought it was a pretty good analogy. So you have to stay tuned for that. We'll be talking to Kent Shelby here in a bit, and Brian Woods as well. So yeah. So first, I mean, what are your thoughts on Teddy Bridgewater here? I know, we kind of prognosticated incorrectly that PJ was going to come in. He had got hit in the head. We thought PJ was going to come in the next week. Of course, we're wrong. I wake up, Van is texting me, Teddy Bridgewater is going to play Sunday. I'm like, of course, we failed. We failed. Van, we're trying. Now, he's hurt again. I mean, even if he plays on Sunday, even if he's okay to play, is this a sustainable solution? I mean, I know he was hurt back with the Vikings and then now again. I mean, is this sustainable or do we need to start figuring out something else? I think it was a situation where, and I'm not trying to disrespect Teddy Bridgewater. I think he's a decent quarterback. I don't think he's a starter. I think he's a backup. I think that's kind of been his role. I think what happened is that last year he did a great job filling in for Drew Brees, guided the Saints to a lot of wins. Of course, Taysom Hill was the third string quarterback. They kind of run out like a wildcat in New Orleans with Taysom Hill as their quarterback in that wildcat formation. So that Teddy Bridgewater was able to stop the bleeding, so to speak, in New Orleans one season and ended up getting himself a great deal. His base salary for this year, of course, $8 million. He had a signing bonus of $5 million. He stands to make $17 million next year. And if he's released, that's $20. That's a $20 million hit on the cap, on the Carolina cap. So I think Teddy Bridgewater is going to stay around at least another season here because after 2021, I believe the potential out is either for him or I'm not seeing who has the out here after 2021, but the cap in 2022 is only $5 million at that point, so it drops $15 million. So Teddy Bridgewater is probably going to be there another year at least, for sure. And that's my prognosis.
It's just tough. I mean, we're watching the games. We had the big thing 2 weeks ago. PJ came in Thursday Night Football. Almost had the TD pass. Struggled a little bit. And then here again on Sunday, I just happened to flip it on before the Seahawks game. We see Teddy go down again. PJ comes in, and it's just so hard because there's so many XFL fans that are watching this. I know, the writers and the fans, and they see, PJ come in, and you're like, oh man, here we go. He's going to do something. And it's in such a tough spot. They were down huge. And it's almost like an impossible. It's almost like a lose-lose. There's no way around it. And so you see him come in, and he just can't. I mean, he just hasn't had the opportunity to get anything across. And it's just so hard to be brought in, when you're just down and it's like your team's just riddled with bullets. And then you come in and you're just kind of thrown to the slaughter too. It's just really hard.
And on top of that, Carolina's not going to be a contender this year. I hate to say it. Hate for, Sheena told us to ingratiate ourselves with Panthers Twitter. And I wish we could, but Carolina's just not going to make the playoffs this year. I mean, the NFC West is stacked. I'm looking at two teams coming out of the NFC South potentially with Tampa Bay and New Orleans. There's just no way Carolina is going to rise above and get into that playoff picture. So maybe it's a situation where you shut Teddy down for the rest of the season. Shut him down. Just give PJ a shot. Let's see what happens. What's going to be the harm in letting PJ go the rest of the season? And then, of course, when you have a quarterback, who's making $17 million next year, you need to start him all the games. So maybe just get him healthy. Maybe just heal him up, get him healthy, and have him earn that $17 million coming up in 2021.
It was interesting. The announcers were saying, because, PJ was, under a lot of pressure, backpedaling, running around, trying to do kind of his normal quick, kind of escape everything. And they said, this is something you learn coming to the NFL, that you might be able to run circles around some of these XFL guys. But when you're in the NFL, there are real players that have real speed, and a lot of those guys can track you down. And PJ got tackled for a huge loss. It was kind of ugly to watch because you just see him kind of flailing around and you go, man, he was such a star in the XFL. And not to be negative on the guy at all, I want him to succeed. And then when you see him come in and it's like both times now, just can't get anything going. It's kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah, and we'll see what they do. We'll see what they do. I think maybe that if PJ is given the ball from the start next week, which could be the situation, if he's given the ball from the start, maybe he is able to get something done. Maybe who does Carolina play next week, or are they off?
No, they're playing.
Check their schedule. I've got it right up here.
I should have had this done. Carolina.
They're playing the Lions.
Yeah, who also suffering from an injury. Matthew Stafford.
Yep. I guess what it's saying is, I guess Will Greer was getting some game reps in practice with the first team too. So maybe Will Greer becomes the starter. Who knows? The Panthers are really banged up. I mean, Christian McCaffrey looks to be out.
Yeah, he's out. I think they said he's out for sure on Sunday.
Look, I hate to say this, but I don't think the Panthers will win another game until probably. Well, they got the Vikings. The Vikings are trash, so they could win that game. But
did you watch any of the Monday Night Football with Kirk Cousins marking out when they won the game? Did you see that?
Oh yeah, I mean Kirk Cousins is he's very famous for marking out at situations like that. Like he's the guy. I don't remember if you remember when he was with Washington, the Washington football team, where he's like, "Yeah, baby, you like that?" And it's like, "You won one game. Calm down, Kirk." He's been stealing from the city of Minneapolis for years. I'm not a real big Kirk Cousins fan.
Well, I'm just saying he has a place on the Markcast after that performance on Monday because he was the biggest mark out there. That was impressive to see. I liked watching that game.
So moving on, what other XFL news do we have?
We have this thing. XFL News Hub posted. Renegades coach Jeff Jazinski. I hate names. Jagodzinski heading to Kentucky. I posted that in the Google Doc. I didn't know. I'm such a college football is such a lack kind of spot in my mind. Do you have any thoughts about Kentucky picking him up?
I don't know anything too much about Kentucky. I do know that they did lose their offensive line coach. Of course, Josh Davis wearing the Kentucky jersey last week when we interviewed him. And then, of course, they did a tribute where they took a delay of game and didn't have, I guess they left a spot on their offensive line open. I know this is all I know about Kentucky football.
That's more than I know. Much. But that's good. That's good insights.
But they did some great things to honor their offensive line coach who had passed away. And of course, they were playing Vanderbilt. They got a delay of game because they didn't hike the ball and left a position open on the field. And Vanderbilt doing the classy thing, declined the delay of game penalty in response to kind of, give a nod for this fallen coach. But maybe that's why Jeff Jagodzinski.
It's tough. It's a toughie.
It's a tough name. Yeah. It's a tough name. So hopefully, maybe that's why he went to Kentucky, is to fill that spot.
Yeah, it says move was necessitated by loss of longtime coach John Scrummon. Yeah, so that's a tough one. I mean, I know Josh has got a soft spot in his heart for Kentucky football, and just good to see. I mean, just move these XFL coaches around, get them moving. I mean, so many of these guys, and with the spring league too, have so much knowledge they're bringing. It's just trying to help people out and move them around. So.
All right, on the XFL front as well, Oliver Luck has. There's been a amended complaint in the long-standing bankruptcy battle. There's been a amended complaint filed to the court. I guess Luck is asking for a jury to hear this case.
Yep, I love this. What do you think about this? I saw this. I thought this was great.
Interesting, because normally these kinds of things are settled with a judge, but he wants a jury to hear this.
Because I think Vince really messed him over, and I think he wants. You know what I mean? I think Oliver Luck's got the sob story here.
Yeah, he's out for blood. Yeah. This is a gamble. This is honestly a gamble. Now you are giving your potential, I guess, winnings, your whole case to a potential to a potential jury. And they could hang, they could have a mistrial, as opposed to just having one judge determine whether or not Vince is in the wrong. This is a bold move.
Bold move, Con. Let's see how it works out for him.
Yeah, it's a bold move. I mean, I I rarely hear about jury trials in terms of civil lawsuits. Like normally a jury thing is a criminal issue. This is interesting.
I think
I don't know
he's
what
got the sob story. I think Vince was off his rocker. I think it's so thin, his grounds for termination for Oliver Luck. I mean, basically it amounted to him going home at the beginning of COVID, and then Oliver Luck hired, forgive me, I can't remember the player's name, I think for the Roughnecks, but one of them to hire them out of offer them a little bit more money or whatever to come do a tryout or something. And that was like that was Vince's claims against Oliver Luck, was that he went home early with COVID to be with his family and he wasn't available. And then he paid a little bit of money to have one player come try out for the league. And that costs, $23 million or whatever.
I guess that's the play here, is that if you argue your case in front of a judge, the judge is supposed to determine by law. I now see, like, where I'm talking about bold strategy, I'm kind of changing my opinion right here on the fly.
Yeah.
You're playing on human emotion here.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're involving people that aren't going to look at the law of the situation. They're going to look at the emotion of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
That might be the play. That might be why Oliver Luck is doing this. That kind of makes sense now that I think about it.
I do. I think it makes a ton of sense.
Now that I take a step back and listen and go, wait a second, we're not relying on a judge to make a legal determination. We're relying on 8, 9, 10 11 emotional human beings to determine whether or not he deserves his money. And then they could potentially award him more money than he's asking for. That's another thing.
And
That's another thing.
Vince has not a good reputation. I mean, I know you're supposed to get these people in that are, I don't have any feelings, whatever. But I mean, Vince is kind of a bully. I mean, I think a lot of people know Vince is kind of a ruthless businessman.
It's true. All right. With that being said, I think we covered all the XFL news, right? Is that it for this
I think
week?
so. We got some other stuff we'll get into after all the spring league stuff, but I think we should kick it to Kent, and then we should go to Brian, and then we'll come back and give thoughts.
Coming up after we pay some bills, the cliche that radio DJs used to say. We got Brian Woods and Kent Shelby and Brian Woods. Either way, we'll probably roll with Kent first, then we'll talk to Brian next. We got them coming up after the break.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining today. It's been a busy morning with the spring league.
Yes, it is.
So how's everything going on your end? I saw you post some stuff this morning, and it seems like there's a lot of activity going on.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm back at home. I left the spring league on Wednesday after I game on Tuesday. Main reason was really just to, get my health back. And I seen how the things wasn't really working to my favor. So I just said, I'm not going to waste my time here anymore.
So it seems like there's some conflicting reports, and I'm going to reach out to Brian Woods too. That we're going to reach out to try to get his side of it. There was a big story last week. The coaches weren't getting paid. XFL News Hub reported that, and it seemed like he got that all taken care of. And now there's another. It just seems like there's another story coming out. Does it seem like kind of where there's smoke, there's fire? What are your thoughts with everything going on?
Well, honestly, I think Brian is doing a good job, marketing and advertising, even though it may not be the right thing to do with some of the things of how we're being treated. But I mean, that's just part of, the business. And I totally understand that.
Do you feel as though you were taken advantage of, or that you guys weren't given kind of the full treatment that was going on, that maybe the money and stuff that people paid? What are your thoughts about that?
Most definitely. It was definitely a great opportunity, but I do believe that we were being misused, mistreated. Because for one, we football players, we need treatment. And there's not really no way for us to get treatment. I had a conflict with my coach because, I did what's best for me and sat out of practice to get treatment because that's the only time I can get treatment. And he didn't like that about me. So he kind of had a little kind of love-hate relationship with me. And it kind of caused some conflict within the team with me. So things like that was going on as far as with the treatment, the trainers were talking to the coaches and stuff like that. So it was tough.
There's been an issue where it's been rumored that some of the coaches were not paid on time. Mm-hmm. Do you think that might have had anything to do with the relationship between the coaches and the players, and why maybe the coach? I'm not trying to condone his behavior by any stretch of the imagination, but maybe that was kind of. He was your coach that you're talking about was kind of deflecting his frustrations with not getting paid on you and the other players?
I mean, possibly. I mean, I didn't really know anything about coaches. I mean, we was actually talking as a players, as the team, as all these coaches getting paid because how they kind of wanted us to practice. They didn't really allow us to get any breaks, no free time for us to get healthy. So I think that did play a huge factor in them not getting paid, most definitely.
So the video that came out today from your friend talked a lot about, COVID policies and testings and things. Did you guys go through testing when you came into the Spring League to play?
No, we did not. We didn't get tested till I want to say the week after our first game. They said we were supposed to get tested before. I did get tested before, and I sent that out to them, but I can't say it was the same for other players because, some players didn't show up, so they had to just get people to come in. And like he said, some people showed up to COVID, and his team was one of those teams that had it. So I'm pretty sure that, that was true on his end.
When you say you got tested, like you did that from your own interest before you came in. It wasn't league. Okay. And
then the league tested us like the day right after our first game.
Paul, you got quite a reaction to that.
What you said? I'm sorry.
Oh, I said Paul. Paul had quite the reaction.
I was visibly reacting to the ball being dropped because this is kind of a major thing that other professional sports have been able to figure this out. Mm-hmm. And it should. We've had this in the landscape for a year. The reason they call it COVID-19 is because it came out in 2019. We've known about this for a year, and other professional sports are able to do this. Why do you think that there's been such a ball dropping, for lack of a better term, no pun intended, with testing with the Spring League? Why? What gives?
I mean, I know the money has a lot to do with it. They're making some serious money, so I figure, the more they make off of us, the less that they give back to us. Even that our health is a factor into it. Because you got to remember, they wasn't really feeding us anything. I remember my day I was leaving the elevator and guys talking about I need to eat some real food before the game. Because we out there, going 100 miles per hour in a game and we barely eating before the game. They'll give us like one little sandwich. That's the equivalent of, a snack. And that's before a game. So, it was just a lot, The breakfast wasn't all that sometimes, they'll give us cold eggs, some cold sausages. Like it was, they treated us like we wasn't really athletes,
This is almost like the fire festival of football leagues. It sounds like to me, like that's when you're talking about one sandwich, it just reminds me of the picture of the Fire Fest, the people posting the pictures of the one sandwich with cheese.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
This kind of reminds me of it. I don't mean to make light of the situation because it's ridiculous nonetheless. So
did you
read the other question?
Yeah. So there's been all this the Spring League traditionally is a pay-to-play league. There's been a lot of Brian Wood saying this year that, some people were paying, not everybody was paying. Did you pay to participate in the Spring League? And if so, how much did you pay?
No, I did not pay for this one. I paid for a previous one in Atlanta in September. I paid $1,200 for that. But this one I didn't have to pay. But one of my buddies who actually did pay, they were supposed to be out there for 3 weeks. They were supposed to serve as like a practice squad. So if someone get hurt, they pulled them from there. But they came in and they told them only 3 days. So they got their money from them and just told them it was 3 days worth of practices. And they didn't even do a full team. They said they were supposed to have a game. All they did was one-on-ones. And some people got pulled from it. Some people didn't. And the reality of it was after those 3 days was over, those guys' rooms was up. And some people were shacking in with other teammates, that actually had a room paid for, hoping to, stay around and get picked up by a team.
Do you know, did other players pay this year to be a part of it?
Yeah, they had some. Yeah. They said they paid, I want to say $800. They had $800 because it was a showcase and it was the actual league. It was 2 different things going on. I wasn't aware of that. I didn't find out till, a couple people that I knew was in the showcase and told me those things.
What do you think a solution would have been to fix all the problems with this? Do you have any ideas?
To be honest, I think, just spend more money on it. I think the more money you put out, the more money you get back. And I think it's a reflection of, the money that they put in on why we was treated like that. They put in less money knowing that they're going to get a lot back. So like I said, they just gave us the end of the stick. don't get me wrong. I appreciate the opportunity. I personally didn't really need the opportunity because I'm playing in the CFL and I kind of wanted to bet on myself, possibly get picked up from a team. And I got my own brand. So I figured I can do 2 and 1. And when I seen how I was being treated, it was like, I'm not getting paid. There's no money coming in. I'm losing money. They don't even cater to your parking. I drove out there, They didn't let us valet. They had a public parking. The only way I got out of the public parking was I had to wait for somebody to leave and drive right behind them. So, the parking wasn't accounted for, And like I said, the meals was just off. We was hungry. The most that they fed us was cookies. They gave us about 2-3 cookies each bag.
Well, at least your blood sugar was right. I mean, look at the bright side. Look at the. I'm spitballing here. I'm clearly making no sense.
Funny.
As a former professional athlete myself, I'm blown away. And I know that when I was coming up, because I turned 42 this week. When I was coming up, we didn't. I guess the right word is the coaches were harder on us, but it seems like there's a line, and it's not a very fine line. It's a very thick, definitive line where it's between treating you like a human and then just treating you like you're lower than that. And it seems like they're on the wrong side of that line.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, because also, too, with the buses situation, it's 6 teams. You have each practice. Each team have probably about an hour and a half to practice. Then they got to get on a bus and come back to the hotel so you can pick up the next group of players. Because it's two teams that practice together. You may not practice that day against each other, but you still at practice together. So there was an issue with that. Let's say the bus comes late, practice starts in 30 minutes, you got to get taped up. There's already guys that's already there before you that drove, people that's trying to get untaped from practice and get treatment. They only have about 3 trainers. To be honest, they probably only had 2 trainers. The other trainers didn't really know what they was doing because they was in school. So they couldn't really help you or service you certain things that you needed. So you kind of late for practice. My team, we barely really stretch how we supposed to. We just jump right into it. Some guys having soft tissue injuries and stuff like that. So it was I can't speak for other teams, because I don't know how every team was ran, but my team, it was kind of off, I'm not the one to complain. I'm a positive person. I'm thankful for a lot of things, but I know when I'm getting, excuse my language. I know.
That's totally fine.
One of the things people do in this league is to get the tape, right? That's the main reason why players want to come participate is get this tape. In the video that Irv posted right today, it said that he had been talking to people that maybe not all the tape was going to be sent out. Some of the coaches were alleging that, right? I mean, that's just kind of hearsay. Had you heard anything about that? Have you had any of those conversations?
To be honest, that's a good question because a lot of guys that I played with in the spring league in August, September, we've been trying to see where was that tape at. Where did you exactly send that tape out? They didn't never really tell us exactly. They just said that they were sending the tape out. I probably need to do a better job of, like I said, asking them, which Irv did, and that was the response he got. So I'm really not sure what they do. I think that might just be something they tell us to ease our mind and we continue to play football.
With technology, it seems like it's very easy to send tape out these days. You just pop a card in a computer and just upload it to YouTube. I mean, you don't have to do major editing work on a game tape that you're recording on the league. So, and especially the fact that they've got a Fox Sports deal, it should be a lot easier to get the tape out. So,
do you think Brian's just over his head, or do you think that there's maliciousness or negligence, or where do you kind of put the blame?
I mean, to be honest, I know he's a commissioner. I mean, if I was a commissioner, I think I'd be more hands-on with my players. I know him because, I don't know, I just spoke. I know how to open my mouth and speak to people. Most players, they don't really have a great connection with speaking with people, so they wouldn't really know who Brian Woods is. And a lot of people didn't know who Brian Woods was. He'll be in that same building, and you wouldn't even know who this guy is. So I think personally he need to do a better job of speaking to his players, letting them know who he is and how he can help. But maliciousness and all that, I can't really speak on that because I don't really know his intentions is. I think he's doing a great job that he did partner with Fox Sports. So that is a good thing with it. But, I think he needs to improve a lot more if he wants more people to come to this league.
It's just hard because this is something that we've wanted to support, that we've wanted to, we started this podcast, XFL, obviously it's got delayed. This gives us something to talk about, players to watch, and we want to support this. I'm trying to go to the championship game if that ever happens here in early December. Paul's shaking his head. We don't know if that's going to happen. But so it's just frustrating when we want to support this league, we want to be fans, and then we just see all this stuff come about. It's just really hard. I mean, what do you think? What do you say to people that want to support the league but are just seeing all this stuff come out now, and it's like week after week of issues?
If you just want to see football, you don't really care what's going on, go for it. But if you really do have a heart in you and you really care of the players, I don't really think you should support this league because how they supported us. They didn't really treat us how we really were supposed to be treated because we just played last Tuesday. We was originally supposed to play Wednesday without the TV game. They text us, an hour before we had to get on a bus. Some guys at cryotherapy, some guys getting treatment. And they just hit us with a text saying that we have to play on TV. I'm not mad because, that was another game to be on TV. But at the end of the day, it's like, they have to be more professional. Also, that they did that with the practices as well. We were scheduled to be for a certain practice, but they'll tell us, oh, no, we moved it up or we moved it down without even really telling us. So it was a lot of unprofessionalism being played out. I mean,
you say you can only speak for your team, but clearly you're a player and you're in a fraternity of players, and you have to have been speaking to other players on other teams. I'm going to safely assume this was going on across the board. Is that a safe assumption?
Most definitely. I truly believe so. I truly do believe so.
Is it scary you knowing the lack of COVID protocol? Because I think that was the thing that shook me the most about watching the video. I mean, just knowing that was probably going off, and here you've left, right? Like you're home. I mean, did you go through any testing, anything? I mean, not to kind of throw you under the bus, but mean, the idea of it being a bubble that's not really a bubble.
Yeah, to be honest, with the testing is actually funny about that because when we did get tested, we was on a bus making jokes, with other players. We was like, oh, I'm negative. We saying we negative. So I'm not sure of the people who was positive that was scared to come out because of the possibility of them quarantining or having to stay in the room. I don't know what happens when a player gets a positive result. I just know about the people that's negative. They just leave them alone. So actually, one of our quarterbacks did get tested positive. Put his business out there, but he tested positive twice. So right now he's in a room because he cares about his health. So he's in a room quarantining, and it sucks because he should be at home with his family now, but he has to stay there. So it's a tough situation.
Sorry, just making notes. I kind of want to beep that name out just because we don't want to break any hip laws.
I don't. If you check my social media page out, man, I'm all about keeping it real and being honest. I can't fake what's really going on. I have to speak out on certain things, so it's all fine with me.
I get that. I guess, what do you? This might be like random, but do you know what kind of testing you guys were going? Like, the kind of test was a nose swab? Was it a PCR test?
Nose. We swab with the nose swab 10 times, I think, on each nose. Then we put it in, and the results came in like that same day.
Rapid test, okay.
Yeah.
From what I've read and what I've tried to research, because I'm not going to be one of those people on social media that knows everything about COVID. Like you see 90% of your feed, people are just experts on COVID, just like now they're experts on legal election laws and stuff like that. So I guess like from what I understand, the nose test, it could take up to like 10 days for you actually to show up as positive. Do you feel like that might have, that's still risking it? That's still risky behavior?
Yeah, but we know what we signed up for, so I can't really complain about that much. But I do know you do need to mask up because, some guys wasn't masking up. They're telling us to, put that pressure on other players to mask up. But it's like, I don't know what his result with the mask is. Some people, can't breathe in their mask or whatever the case may be. But because they threatened us plenty of times about kicking us out the hotel because of guys not wearing masks and stuff like that. And then they were saying guys was taking too many meals at one time because some people wasn't being fed because of that. And I see why people was taking meals. You know, you got to think about the old lineman. Like I said, if the meal wasn't enough for me, I'm pretty sure about that old lineman that needs to eat. They eating that one little meal. Then on top of that, guys going to Whataburger, ordering out every single day. I know you didn't come out here with a lot of money like that. Mm-hmm. So if you be eating out every single day, you constantly losing money. Then you may have to Uber to go get treatment. Because the first time treatment was at the hotel. The other 2 times it was at the stadium that we had to go to. So that's Ubering to there. Then you have to go Uber to go, go get a massage. I mean, it's just, there was a lot of stuff, man. If you really wanted it, trust me, you was going to make a way. But, I mean, it's crazy.
So I just have a couple more questions myself. I know that some of the fees that players have been paying have been paid by their agents that are trying to get them on NFL teams. Mm-hmm. Has there been any, have you discussed with any potential agents about what's going on? Do you know of any talks that have been going on with agents?
I didn't hear nothing about any agents. I know the guys that's paying, that's not agents. You know what I'm saying? The guys who have agents, they should be playing. They should be there for free because some of them was getting, the top of the list for some guys that I know that actually deserve to be on a team that paid. They just got pushed out the way because of the agent. So, if you was just a regular guy, without really an agent looking for a real opportunity, you definitely paid for that.
It seems frustrating to me. And I was trying to find the info that we were talking about on the XFL. Oh, with Kenneth Farrow, and he's got the Players Foundation he's trying to work on now, and talking about how this is the exact reason why we need to have it's the USP. I'm trying to find it on here. The UFPA, and that they're trying to look out for players in some of these, not the NFL, but a lot of these more, not smaller leagues, but just not that, the NFL. To be able to look out for players like this, because they talked like when the AAF folded, guys were having to buy their own plane tickets home, right? And then we saw in the video that got posted today, when the Jousters and stuff, it looked like when they had their game canceled, they were getting kicked out of the hotel, right? They said, hey, you got 24 hours or 48 hours to be out of here. So what do you think about, having a league like, an affiliation like that, looking out for players that are participating in a lot of these more niche leagues and trying to look out for your guys' well-being, like the food, like the treatment, like all that?
I think it's a good idea. I know what you're talking about because I get those emails, and I didn't really take it too serious because I didn't really think I was going to run into a situation like this. But now that I have, I'm more interested in it because we actually need something like that to look out for us because the way that they treated us, man, is just like, if people speak out more on it, then I think things will change. But if you are cool with that, and you don't speak out on it, things will continue to be the same, and you have nobody to blame but yourself. So I'm thankful for Kenneth Farrow creating that opportunity for us, and I will connect with him.
Yeah, the United Football Players Association, UFPA. Forgive me for not having that top of mind, but yeah, definitely trying to establish that to look out for this exact situation. So, Paul, do you got anything else?
I forgot my second question. I'm so sorry, but we do definitely appreciate your time and appreciate you talking to us. Plug your stuff. What do you got going on otherwise? Other than you said you have a clothing line. Just plug that. Let us know what's going on with that too.
Okay, yeah. So I'm basically like a motivational speaker. I just try to give hope to people. A lot of people go through some mental things in life, and some people don't know which direction to go and how to get out of that mental capacity. So I just have my brand, failure is not an option. Standing their chest and just trying to preach people that, we're grown-ups now. We ain't we're not in a child household anymore, and it's the real world. And a lot of things can happen in that real world. So I just try to continue to help people stay positive and go get what they deserve. Just like something like this, if you feel like you was messed over, speak out on it. So it can better for somebody else that participates in the next event like this, Well,
we appreciate your time. Definitely.
I appreciate you guys for having me.
And happy early birthday. Oh, sorry, I cut you off. Happy early birthday. I know that we popped this in and this will go out. Yep. This will go out Friday, but thanks for hopping on before your birthday to do it. I appreciate it.
Wait, when's your birthday?
November 18th.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
Yeah,
okay. So I'm on the 20th. So
the 20th. Yeah. Okay. All right, cool.
Scorpio energy.
Yes, sir.
All right. Take it easy, Kent.
All right. Thank y'all for having me.
Thank you so much. Stay safe. Kent Shelby, thanks again.
Yes, sir.
Brian Woods, want to thank you for joining us on the XFL Markcast to talk about what's going on with the Spring League. Of course, everything this week kind of blew up a little bit. What were your initial thoughts?
Well, look, we've had a good 3-week run there in San Antonio. I think the products look good. I think, the coaches did a good job getting the guys ready in a very short period of time. But unfortunately, just like everybody else right now, every sport league and sport organization around the country is dealing with the COVID pandemic. And the one thing I'll tell you is we did not come to San Antonio with COVID. We were clear from the get-go. We didn't even have our first positive case until day 10. And even then, it was a little bit confusing because the player that was in question that tested positive actually tested negative a day later. We sent him home for precautionary measures. He then cleared 2 PCR tests and returned to us probably about 6 days after that. And it wasn't until week 2, a little later in week 2, that we actually saw an additional case. So all in all, I think for the most part, things went as smooth as they could go. But unfortunately, you get guys in a hotel. They're there for so many days. They start to get a little stir crazy. They're having guests in their room after hours. They're going out. At times they're not wearing their mask. Look, we did our part to try to keep things safe there, and we had a good protocol in place. But ultimately, COVID caught up to us in the situation where we had a handful of teams that had more than one test. And once we reached that one positive result, there was a threshold that our doctors did not want us to exceed. And 2 of those teams yesterday afternoon were pretty close to that. And then we just felt like in the best interest of the players and the safety of the coaches and staff that we could not, in good conscience, go forward and play those games. But we're still very much committed to playing the championship game December 2nd and, finish the season out strong.
With that championship game, though, do you feel like you might have trouble enticing players to come back to play that final game?
Look, I think it's a fair point. I mean, a couple of things. One, the team that was the apparent league champion, at least after week 3, would have been the Generals. The team that was the most affected from a roster standpoint in recent days at the Spring League was, in fact, the Generals. So 2 things here we're dealing with. One, making sure that these players are healthy enough to return. They're not suffering from any lingering effects of COVID. And 2, to your point, are these players going to be comfortable returning unless we can make sure that everyone that's coming in, it would have to be an even tighter bubble situation than what we had originally. So I think we're committed to playing the championship game. I think the players, I met with the Generals as a team just a couple of days ago, and they seem to be very keen to return to playing the championship game. So I don't think it's going to be a factor of properly motivating them, but certainly, and I'm not just concerned with our COVID situation that we've experienced in recent days in San Antonio. I'm very concerned with what's happening nationally and how that's affecting even the surrounding, the state we're in Texas and the city of San Antonio.
Yeah, because my wife and I had tickets to go to San Antonio in anticipation of, obviously covering the game and going and then buying tickets whenever they were available. And, when all that came down yesterday, I mean, we went and got refunds and stuff because I didn't know. And we were already kind of hesitant with going to Texas anyway, but obviously kind of trying to make that decision. But so you are guys still committed to going forward with that on the 2nd?
Yeah, we are. We're definitely committed. I mean, again, it's a very fluid situation with us right now, but we feel like that we can create a safe environment. Look, we're not bringing back everyone, obviously. It would only be the 2 teams and a very limited support staff on top of the coaches that are going to be there. But as of right now, we are still committed to playing the championship on December 2nd.
Are there any regrets? I don't like to use the word regret because I don't regret much myself. But are there any regrets? maybe of like. Are there any things you could have done differently, like hold it in a different state that had stricter COVID regulations?
Look, that's a fair point. Here's what we deal with. It's like a double-edged sword. If you do it in a place where the COVID protocols or the COVID restrictions maybe are a little tighter, then that might be a state that shuts down a little quicker as well. So it was when we talked about where we wanted to conduct our fall season, as you know, this is kind of an anomaly for us. We usually and traditionally have existed in the springtime of each year. But we saw an opportunity this fall to give players an opportunity. And I think that the fact that there were no NFL mini camps, most pro days were NFL teams pulled their scouts off the road before most pro days were in fact completed. Training camp rosters were reduced in size. So we felt like that we needed to be out there this fall to give players an opportunity that should have been in the camp, a place to stay active and kind of continue to hone their skills, if you will. But again, going back to your question, right now, I mean, I'm envisioning a scenario where we drop a turf field in the middle of a desert and bring players in via helicopter, because that might be the only safe alternative to what we're trying to do right now. So I think absolutely going into the environment that we were in, and it was close to a bubble as possible, really wasn't a bubble in the sense that a lot of what we asked for from the players was tough. You're asking these players to self-quarantine 2 weeks before arrival, asking these players to not venture outside the hotel property. I think after a few weeks, that gets hard to do. And look, we're not paying these guys. So even the NBA players that are making millions were down in Orlando, and they were really enduring a lot of psychological stress because of that bubble environment. And so I felt like if players would be responsible, they would wear their masks, they would social distance, they would adhere to any sort of gathering restrictions in the city and in the state of Texas, that we would be okay. But again, that's a lot to ask for, young men. And I just think going forward, we would try to find an environment that was a lot more conducive to preventing any sort of outside interaction with our players, coaches, and staff.
So some of the things that we wanted to also bring up is in the bubble situation. We had Kent Shelby come on and discuss some of the conditions that they said the meals were inadequate, these kinds of things. So was that a team by team decision from the coaches, or was that a league decision to have these things, these meals and these hotel situations set up?
Yeah, I mean, look, again, this is never perfect. And this is where I think we get labeled inappropriately. We have a deal with Fox Sports. Fox Sports has really made our property a very, I should say, viable. More important. Absolutely. They put us on the map. We had had our fair share of exposure in 2018 when we had Johnny Manziel. But for the last 2 years, as you guys know, with the AAF and the XFL being out there, we kind of operate in the shadows of those leagues. So a lot of people didn't really pay attention to us, but yet we continue to get players. We continue to develop players, get a lot of players signed out of our league. So I think that people have to remember that the Spring League is, in fact, the D League. We're a professional football league in the sense that our talent is good. I mean, I've had guys from Fox, the top executives, say, look, we're watching this. It looks just as good as XFL or AAF, if not better. So I think to make the argument that our product is inferior, I would never buy into that whatsoever. I think we've got a good product to sell, but I think people still have to remember we're AA and AAA baseball. We're the NBA G League. So we still have to do things in a very cost-effective manner without skimping. So we weren't skimping on testing. That I can tell you. We spent a considerable amount of money to bring a laboratory on site. Several times we were there and conduct PCR testing. We had one caterer service the entire hotel, all the 6 teams that were in that hotel. And again, they stayed at the Westin Riverwalk San Antonio, arguably the nicest hotel in San Antonio. It's like a 4 or 5 star property. Yeah, so the living conditions were good. The meals, I think it's more of a preference than anything else. I mean, what some people find is a very good dinner, other players might not seem so interested in. But we did not have the benefit of doing the traditional buffets that we would set up and do in a ballroom in normal circumstances. So all the meals had to be prepackaged. They all had to be bubble wrapped and so on and so forth. So if some players weren't happy with the meals, that's possible. But I would also tell you that the majority of the players that were there, we didn't get these kind of complaints. The majority of the players that were on site seemed to be very happy with their experience. They were happy with the meals. They understood what the opportunity was. They were more than grateful or gracious as it related to the coaching they were getting. We had really good coaches there. So I'm still very happy with what we put forth, but I think you guys can understand and can appreciate this as well. you're always going to get a handful of guys. It just, no matter what you do, it just doesn't work for them. And I can't speak to Kent Shelby's interview because, quite frankly, I have not seen it. But certainly, if guys have been in other leagues before, the Canadian Football League, been in an NFL training camp, and they're accustomed to a certain type of training table meal or the number of practice shorts they get, they still have to remember that we're a D league and we have to be cost effective in what we're doing.
Got it.
So I think the most concerning thing for us that Kent said, and this is paraphrasing what he said, but in relation to the bubble and testing, it's Kent's story that when he entered, he was not tested from the spring league until the day after the first Fox game. That's what he said. He said that he had paid to get tested on his own before he came, but from the spring league was not tested until the day after the first game. Does that sound like accurate, or is that a misremembering, or what would be that?
No, that's accurate. I mean, the way our protocol worked was, and again, we had physicians sign off on this. Players were to begin a 14-day quarantine period even before they arrived in San Antonio. So they were expected to pretty much stay at home unless they absolutely needed to kind of limit their interaction with any other family members or things of that nature. When they arrived, they had to show us a negative result, one that was conducted preferably within the last 72 hours. So we felt like as long as we had that coming in and we had the quarantine period from the players, we were okay based on the information we got from the physicians. We conducted the first test. I do believe the first test was conducted either prior to or right after the first game. I'd have to go back and look at the dates. But here's what I would tell you. On that day, we had 6 teams there. Everybody was there at that point. So we had all our teams, we had all our coaches and all our staff. We had right around 300 players there, right around 300 individuals all together. Only one positive test came out of that first round. Only one. That one positive, we're still not certain was a positive test because, as I mentioned, the young man got a positive, retested on the same day, or a day later rather, 24 hours later, tested negative, and then went home. We were unsure because his negative test was a rapid test and his PCR test was positive. So he then subsequently went home. His family lived in Austin, Texas, stayed there for a handful of days, cleared 2 PCR tests, and then came back. So coming in was not the problem. Like I said, what I tell people is we didn't bring COVID to San Antonio. That's not how it happened. But we certainly had, I think, maybe some interactions with players and outsiders that might have gotten out of hand after week 2.
The other big question that's been raised online right now is, now that the league has canceled the games, there might be players that have been in contact with other players that have tested or are sick or aren't sick. And now what is happening to them now that the games are canceled? There's been concern that they're having to pay to put themselves up in hotel rooms, that they're having to pay to potentially fly home, having been exposed. What's happening to the players now that the games are canceled?
Yeah, so I appreciate you bringing that up. So essentially what has transpired, everyone was scheduled, even if all 6 of our teams were still there, every one of our teams were scheduled over 2 weeks ago to go home today. So our last set of games for week 4 were all going to come on Tuesday. Fox wanted a doubleheader, so we were going to play the non-televised game earlier in the day and then play the 6 o'clock and I believe the 9:30 p.m. Central kickoff all on Tuesday. Everybody, coaches, staff, players, they were all set to depart on Wednesday. However, as you know, we had a handful of positive results come back on Tuesday morning. And so at that moment, we had to isolate those players. Not only do we have to isolate those players, we have to isolate their roommates. And then obviously we advise people that haven't potentially come in close contact with those players to get retested as soon as possible. Players that tested positive by no means were kicked out of the hotel. They were actually given the option. So in some instances, we did have some players that tested positive, but they did not want to quarantine in the hotel for the next 7 to 10 days. And they made the decision that they drove and they were going to drive home. We spoke to our league physician. He was okay with that. The only thing he was not okay with is players getting back on planes and flying home. So we right now have a handful of guys. I'm not sure how many right offhand because I was just speaking to one of my ops guys here this evening. We still have a handful of guys that are remaining in the hotel we are paying for that hotel bill. That is not something that they have to pay for while they go through this quarantine period. And then they're being given the option, if they want to drive home, they're going to be allowed to drive home. But if they're considering flying, we are strongly discouraging that. As a matter of fact, we really are trying to prevent them from doing that. But there raises some questions there from us because we can't hold somebody against their will either.
Right.
So hopefully that clarifies our position there.
So with that being said, are you looking to potentially help facilitate any further COVID testing for these players that are stuck in the hotel the 7-10 days? You say you don't want them to fly home, but there's a potential like in 5 days they could come back and have a negative PCR test. At that point,
is correct.
You'd feel like that'd be comfortable enough to let them get on a plane.
That's correct. And so this has been the tough thing for us is, as you guys know, as the COVID has spiked around the country, we've even noticed it with our own lab that was coming on site. The results kept coming back slower and slower each testing because the number of cases around the country are on the rise. It's actually quite alarming. So yes, we do have kind of a protocol to follow. If players can clear a negative test prior to their scheduled departure date, then certainly we can allow them to go home before that. The problem we're running into is outside of bringing the community lab on site, getting players into testing has not been easy as it was week 1 and week 2 because everyone is going and getting tested right now. So we're doing what we can to facilitate that with local urgent care facilities. And it may even be a situation where we have to bring the community labs back on site to do one more sweep of the guys that still remain. But with that's still a PCR test and usually takes about 24 hours to turn around. Some of these guys want instant results. So
what do you think is, from your perspective, having gone through all this now, tried to make it be a bigger show this year, with the Fox, with the league, multiple weeks, all the teams, all these things. What is your takeaway from this? Was this a success? How do you feel? What do you want the takeaway from the public to be about how these last 4 weeks have gone? Because I know from our listeners and people online and people on websites, there were a lot of eyeballs watching this. A lot of people were really excited, like the play on the field. Like you said, were exciting, thrilling games, lots of good, talent. So what would you want the takeaway to be?
I mean, look, I think ultimately the success I was trying to measure is now that we have a made-for-TV product, if you will, now that we have this partnership with Fox Sports, first and foremost, I wanted to make sure that my coaches could put together a good game plan. We did not have a lot of prep time going into week 1. So I wanted the product to look good on the field. And I felt like it did. I felt like ultimately the product looked good. The only thing I'm disappointed about is as I mentioned earlier in the call, is that we couldn't finish week 4. I was really looking forward to doing that. And I got to tell you guys, it was not an easy decision for me yesterday, not whatsoever, because on one hand, I've got a media partner that I'm obviously trying to appease, but on the other hand, I have players, coaches, and staff that's my main concern. I've got to protect these guys. Okay, so if anybody makes any sort of reference, I get kind of I don't want to say I get a kick out of this, but I'm definitely amused when I read things of players claiming that they were forced to play and things of that nature. That nothing could be further from the truth. Has never been my position. If anything, I'm more of an advocate for the players than probably any league commissioner. I really am. I'm there, and we created the Spring League to give guys opportunities because there's just nothing out there, especially right now. But I think that that's really my biggest disappointment, is not being able to finish the season, at least the regular season. So I'm hopeful, I'm very hopeful and encouraged that we can come back and end on a strong, positive note, with the championship game. But I would also tell you that I enjoyed the fact that we could keep players together longer than our traditional format, because I think for us, I'm really trying to make this a true D League in every sense of the word or words. And that means for me, the players need to be with us longer. They can't be with us for a 4-day showcase. They can't be with us for a 10-day league or a 14-day league. They really need to be with us longer, if nothing else, to work with the NFL caliber coaches and develop properly. And we're really trying to make a big push into the international component as well, and bringing over players from Japan and other countries. And that program is working for us, and we're getting really good talent, especially out of Japan. So, I'm encouraged. But I'm also very mindful of what's happening with COVID. And it's not an easy thing to do to pull this off right now in the circumstances that we're facing with this global pandemic. So I think next spring, I would certainly put a lot more thought into where we're actually going to locate the spring league, because that is going to be paramount. That's going to be crucial.
Did the video that came out yesterday that kind of started our interest in what's going on with this, did that video play into your factor to shut it down for the year at all?
You know, to be honest with you, I was making the decision yesterday, even before I saw the video. So the video, and to be quite frank, I watched maybe 20. I watched the opening of it and realized very quickly that it wasn't going to be a positive thing for the spring league. But certainly, I'm very disappointed that an individual, instead of coming to me to voice his concerns, chooses to air grievances out in the public domain. So I'm kind of disappointed by that individual's actions. But by the same token, I'm also not giving it a lot of credence, because the things that are being mentioned in there, just a lot of them are unfounded, if not just disingenuous and inaccurate. So that video had no bearing on the decision I had to make yesterday.
Got it.
2 quick questions before I let you go. So is the goal to do something else in the spring now?
Absolutely. That's the thing is, Fox looked at this as a soft launch. Obviously, when we first started negotiating with Fox, one thing you guys probably recall is that late in the summer, earlier in the fall, we were looking at a scenario where there was not going to be any Big Ten football. There wasn't going to be any Pac-12 football. And really, it didn't look like the NCAA basketball season was going to start in time. So with that being said, Fox not only wanted to get involved with us, but they saw us as a possibility where we could come in and potentially play this fall, given some of the reasons I mentioned earlier, is kind of a soft launch for next year's spring league, because it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's kind of counterintuitive to call yourself the spring league and operate in the fall. So that from a marketing standpoint, it's kind of hard to explain. But regardless, I think that they were very encouraged by what they saw. They raved about what they saw on the field, and we will return next spring in a similar, if not bigger, fashion as far as the number of weeks we operate and the number of teams that are involved. The only thing that we're not sure about right now is when that start date will be, because a lot of that has to do with the programming. So it could be potentially a February start. It could be an April start, but we don't have that information, at least at this moment.
My last question, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask the CEO of the Spring League about this when I had you on the call. When are we going to get some merch? I need my Jousters jersey. We have an episode of our podcast called "Can We Please Get Rid of the Jousters jersey?" Like episode 12. This is the thing. When are we getting some Spring League merch? And this is a real question.
Listen, when we're offline here, you guys email me your address, and I will not only make sure you get merch, I'll make sure you guys get a game ball and an official Jousters helmet. Because let me tell you something, that is a very, very unique name, a very unique name. So I'm disappointed that the Jousters were never able to appear on television. And listen, I understand that the individual that posted the video today was unhappy. That was clear that he was unhappy. And I think part of it was they didn't get to play on television once. And I can understand that. I can understand that frustration. Not to maybe the extent that he aired it, but certainly I can understand the frustration. And I was disappointed that the Jousters didn't get a chance to show their unique brand and mark to the world. So certainly we can get that merchandise for you guys. That won't be a problem.
They were our team. I picked them in the preseason, and we got shut out.
I have a hard time believing that you picked them in the preseason.
I swear to God, go back and check the tape. I swear, my hand on the Bible. We picked it. We had bets going with a lot of the different podcasts and other people online, and we had the Jousters.
If you guys had reached out to me before you aired that, or before the season started, and said, "Hey, where should we go?" That might have been the last team I told you. But here's why. No, I'm serious. Even the head coach for that team, that was the last head coach hire that I had. They were actually the last concept, logo, branding, everything kind of came late together for that team. Now, again, when we picked the team name and when the branding was done on that team, should have no bearing on how that team performs. But certainly, the head coach there, Chuck Bresnahan, to his credit, he had the shortest period of time to assemble a staff and really get ready to play. So he did not have it. He did not have an easy road. And then unfortunately, Coach Bresnahan's team was the one that was afflicted by COVID so quickly. So it was tough. But kudos to you guys for picking the Jousters to take the league championship. That's great.
I saw the logo come up. I said, we're the Markcast. I said that is our team to a T. So yeah, we're ready to go.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right, Brian Woods, we want to thank you for your time. We appreciate you stopping on, addressing some of the issues, some of the concerns, and we'll definitely look forward to the spring league coming back in the spring.
Absolutely, guys. I appreciate it. And anytime you want to have me back on, I'd be more than happy to do it.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you again.
All right, guys. Take care.
Want to thank Kent Shelby and Brian Woods for joining us here on the XFL Markcast, talking about the spring league. Hopefully that kind of clears the air and gives a better understanding of where we're supposed to go with the spring league. And I don't think the story's done yet.
No, and there's always going to be a mix of emotions. There's always going to be a mix of opinions. The story came out, a couple of weeks ago with the paying the coaches and everything. There's always going to be mixed opinions on this, and so I think it was important to give both sides, some time to share their thoughts and feelings. And I thank you so much, for Brian to come on and share his thoughts as well.
And to that point, it's like people were rushing the XFL to come back, and I think this is like the case study for it.
This is exactly why. Yeah. And I was eating dinner last night and I kind of just pondered down some notes in the Google Doc, not to be overwhelming, but I was trying to get some stuff out because I was thinking a lot about this. And this is exactly why they didn't rush the XFL. And as soon as they had the spring league was coming out, obviously a lot of people were posting stuff in the XFL. There's lots of XFL Facebook groups. I even had people on Twitter message me, well, why couldn't the XFL come back? Spring League's doing it. Why couldn't the XFL come back? And, my thing was always, this is a much, much, much smaller thing. This is 6 teams over 4 weeks at one location. This isn't 8 teams. A lot more support staff involved with the XFL. But this is exactly why. This is why they didn't rush it. If you don't follow those proper protocol, you're going to get caught. And this is an example of, whether it was carelessness or things happened, but obviously something slipped through the cracks and this is what happened. So,
yeah, I mean, that's, we were kind of like going, 2021, we were both excited. We're like, God, I hope they come in 2021. And now this kind of gives us perspective where we're like, okay, I guess this is good. This is good that we're being smart about this and not rushing, to provide a XFL season in 2021. We're going to wait till 2022 and actually have a full season this time. Because I feel confident in saying this. I think we got this COVID thing under control by then. Just throw it out there.
Lord help us. Well, but that's the thing too. And when you have such a small league like the spring league or like the XFL, it's one thing, NFL, okay, like the Titans, okay, they can delay, back earlier in the season, okay, we can delay a game, we can make it up later, all this. I mean, the spring league shows, they had, 2 teams or whatever with cases, and then they had to shut everything down because there's no other games to play. There's no other teams to move in. There's no other things to move around. And so it's, you get to the point where you go, we got nothing else to do. We kind of got to pull it, we can't be moving stuff in to kind of fill the schedule in and then kind of make that stuff up on the back end. I mean, you got 4 weeks, you got 6 teams. They had already lost, the Jousters because of it, and then the Conquerors, and then you get to this point, you got nothing else to do. You kind of got to cut bait. So, yep. I think with the NFL, you have a little bit more flexibility there if you need to. So.
That's true. And with that being said, if they come back in 2022, of course, Reed, you can probably get your season tickets at CenturyLink again for Seattle Dragons. But hopefully they reinstate. I can't speak today. I'm having trouble. I'm so fatigued. I'm so wiped out. Hopefully they reinstate your season ticket merch discount. I know you're a big fan of merch.
Well, I forgot to talk about this when we were doing the XFL segment. This is a true thing. So I was going on the other night because, as I do, I was just looking at XFLshop.com. Seeing what was going on. We're fans here. And they had like this dragon lanyard. And I thought, oh man, I'm going to pick up like $9. I'm going to pick up a dragon lanyard.
Hi, Mark.
For my keys. And I went in because if you got season tickets, spoiler alert, I mean, it was the most, why is my Facebook is closed? Why is my thing messaging me? How is that even possible? Everything is closed out. That is so weird. Really, I'm like asking for like a tech support here. That's very odd.
Good.
Spoiler alert, it was the worst kept secret in the world. But if you had season tickets, with the XFL, you got a season ticket code for 20% off all your merch sales. It was like CTIX 2020 or something. And I went on to put it in and it didn't work. So someone is at work with Rock and Danny and all of them, and they took that code out. So
are you mad? Are you mad?
Well, it means they're making stuff about it. I mean, it means that they're making moves and doing stuff. And they were like, well, we're going to turn that crap off. We don't need to be giving that away. But because I didn't buy it then. That's the moral of the story is I didn't buy the lanyard because I couldn't get my 20% off.
Wow. A whole 20% off, dude. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You didn't buy a lanyard because you want.
Wow. Wow. Wow, bro.
Really?
Yep.
Who are you? Are you Michael Payne right now? Is that what's happening? Is that what's hot in the streets?
Hey, he listens to every episode. Be polite. But here, going back to the spring league, here, what do you think about this? So the Rock and Danny are watching this. They're watching everything unfold. What do you think they think about the spring league? Because they're watching.
I think they're just looking at it in terms of a potential player pool. I don't think they I'm sure they don't have, maybe there's a little bit of like a secondary reasons like, yep, see, we're doing the right thing. Smart business idea to postpone it a year. See, look at us. We made a good decision. But I don't think they're looking at it and judging it completely. I just think they're looking at it like, let's see what talent is excelling here. And here's another thing about the whole, pay to play thing. It's not a vanity league. It's a pay to play to get your tape built, blah, 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 blah. Anybody who paid to play in the spring league is probably going to be invited to workouts in the XFL and have a chance to make a roster there too. So this is a situation where I just think they were probably just watching and sitting back and basically looking at the players on field and not necessarily the drama or, I'm sure there was a secondary like, yeah, we did the right thing, but I'm not sure that drove them to watch this go down.
Well, I also think that it's going to maybe make sure that they were going to take care of their players anyway, but I think it's going to make sure that they don't let things like this happen to their players. And this was something else I saw on Twitter last night is, so a lot of these players now that, have been potentially exposed or, are sick or were with, other teams that were sick, they now have to either fly themselves home, potentially at risk, or they have to pay to keep themselves in a hotel or Airbnb or whatever in San Antonio. And I saw a lot of people online last night worrying about this and thinking like, man, that sucks to think that you were going to, not only can you not play now, but now you actually have to pay to quarantine yourself down here, away from your family. You can't get home for 10, 14 days.
It sounds like some AAF stuff. Like, remember how the AAF had all those issues where I don't think they flew anybody back and they just shuttered everything and didn't even say anything to the player. They just stranded him. It's kind of the same situation going on here, and it's unfortunate. It definitely is unfortunate.
There's going to be a lot of talk now, and I've already seen a lot of chatter, and we talked about this with Kent, but with Kenneth Farrow with the United Football Players Association, and just making sure that there's a voice and a league that's going to be looking out for these players, because there's no protections here. They come in, they're putting their bodies at risk, all these other things, and then the plug gets pulled, and then they're kind of SOL. They're stuck down there. They got to pay to get home. I mean, it's a messy situation.
Because the NFL has a players association, a union, but these other you have to be on an NFL roster to get on that union, and that's probably the bigger need here is that these players need a union outside of the NFL to kind of protect their rights. There's a lot of talk about unions going on right now with not only this, but with WWE as well. This seems to me like a glaring need for these players that are playing, arena football too. There's an arena football league, and I'm not sure that they have a union. That's something else that I've never looked into to see if they have a union that protects the players in arena football leagues. So maybe the United Football Players Association might be the way to go about things.
Yeah, I mean, it's a physical game. You're putting a lot of wear and tear on your body. There's a lot being asked of you. I mean, we need to protect these people. And that was why, when The Rock came in, as an athlete, and that's what they said. That's what he and Danny said, that they were going to put the players first, build the culture of the game. and to make sure that these players are taken care of and that, not only their mental, but physical well-being as well. I mean, it's really important. One other question I have for you was, do you think that there's going to be a championship game in December?
No, I think it's done.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's done. I think, you're not going to have any regrets about canceling your San Antonio stuff at all. I think it's a wrap.
I think asking players that have just gone through all of this and then gone home to pay to come
can you come back? We're gonna award a trophy to one team, and they're not going to do that.
No.
None of these players are coming back. This is a wrap, and I'm not sure it'll come back with Brian in charge of it. I'm not sure that's going to be an option. I'm not sure any of these players are going to trust him.
I saw some chatter online that this was a camp that tried to, obviously evolve into a league, and they felt like it overstretched what it was trying to be. And this is kind of where all the trouble got into. Do you feel like, because in years past, it was like a 2-day thing. It was a 1-game thing. It was a little scrimmage thing. It wasn't this 4-team moving players in and out in COVID, in the thing, in the bubble, all these other things.
The Fire Festival analogy that I used with Kent is accurate here. It is completely 100% accurate, where they didn't stay within their means. They promised way too much, way too fast, and didn't think about the logistics behind it. Like, let's do a league and let's get a TV deal, and they're only thinking about money. It seems like they were only thinking about the money at the end of the day and not about, well, let's do it responsibly. I mean, these startups, and I'm not saying the Spring League is a startup, but it kind of is on its infancy. I cannot speak today.
That's okay.
It's on its infancy, and you got a situation where you've already shot yourself in the foot, as opposed to starting slow and building and building and building, and maybe in 5 years get the TV deal. You have to have sponsors behind this to kind of take the L for you for a while before you can actually turn a profit and give those sponsors their money back, or their investors their money back. And it just seems like the cart was put before the horse. The Fire Festival thing, it just kind of rings true on this one.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, and I'm probably guilty of it. I think a lot of people thought, oh, it's a spring league, it's a thing, they're going to do all this stuff. Like I said, in years past, it was more of a developmental thing, and I think we maybe expected a little bit more than they were ready to do, right? And where it is supposed to be more getting tape, getting reps, all those things, I think people just expected a little bit too much. And whether that was the league's fault for promising that, or for projecting that, or if people were just too super hungry, okay, we didn't get the XFL, but this is the next best thing. We just need something right now. Maybe that's part of it too. I mean, maybe we were all guilty of kind of propping it up too, right? I mean, I don't know. Are we to blame?
I don't know. I just think that we needed stuff to talk. Like we wanted to be the voice of the alternate football leagues, and we wanted stuff to talk about. But I don't think it was a situation where we were like, where people were pushing it. We're just like, we need something to cover, and this is going on, so why don't we cover it? I don't think it was a situation where we were demanding that they do a full-on league. That was worked out. Those deals with Fox Sports were worked out long before we got involved in this and interested in this. Am I wrong?
No. My fear is this was, originally I believe they were planning to do another reincarnation of this in the spring. And now my fear is obviously that this is all, that there'll be a little bit of negative connotations about it. Because I think you can, I think you can, it's really easy to say, okay, it was COVID's fault. I don't know if that was 100% COVID's fault, all this. Right. You know what I mean? Where like, I think that the XFL back in March, very much like that was COVID's fault. Like very much that if it were not for COVID, XFL would have had a complete season. We would have crowned probably the Roughnecks as the champions. PJ Walker would have been MVP. I think COVID, that and that alone halted all of that, where I don't think that this was necessarily all COVID's fault.
Right. And I mean, the AAF, when it folded, there was no COVID around to blame for the folding of the AAF. There was just mismanagement. And was COVID a factor in this? Yes, COVID was definitely a factor in this. But hearing Kent describe the meals they were given, it was clear there was some disorganization going on. And maybe COVID just accelerated the inevitable situation where this was going to fall apart.
It's hard to keep it all together. It's, look at the NFL. You got more money in the world behind the NFL, and they still have trouble. They're still running into problems. I think one of the Rams just today, right, came out, said, that they got to isolate. I mean, this is still an issue for everybody. And so,
and I accept the Seattle Seahawks. I want to point that out. The Seattle Seahawks are the only NFL team to not have had a player go into the COVID protocols.
Well, Russell goes home to Sierra, right? Or is
but I think Russell's responsible too.
Oh yeah, I think I think Pete commands a little bit of respect for that, and I think that they kind of say, "Hey, let's keep this. I mean, I do think the Seahawks have a pretty good crew of guys. Not that they need my opinion, but I think they do.
So I saw that you got Kraken tickets too.
I did. So spoiler alert, Paul, we are going to be starting the new Kraken cast. No, just kidding. I don't know anything about hockey enough to do a podcast, but I am excited for this. The Kraken was going to kind of be, the XFL is my first love. The Dragons are my first love. And then when that all folded, they had just announced, the Seattle Kraken, and I thought, okay, maybe this could be something that I can hang my hat on. And there's a lot there. There's a lot of hockey history. I don't know a lot about it. I know that CM Punk likes the Blackhawks. That's about all that I know. And so,
my favorite team is?
What's your the Devils?
Yes,
the Devils. And so, but we did get tickets. We went on yesterday. We had Ross. He was a fantastic ticket representative. We got to look at our seats, and we are 22. We're like the red line. So I don't even know what that means, but we get half the games. And we are season tickets now for the Kraken Army.
Congratulations.
Yep.
Congratulations on that.
Yep.
If the Devils come up and play, I'll definitely have to come up and then hang with you guys for that to see the Devils play.
Come to Climate Pledge Arena.
Did you see the alternate reverse retro hockey jerseys?
These looked awesome.
People are dissing the Devils one, but as a Devils fan, I love it. I love the green. I love everything about it. People are going to talk crap about it. I love the green and the red.
I know it looks like a Christmas tree. Yeah.
I know it looks like a Christmas tree or Raphael from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I don't care. I love the green jerseys that the Devils came out with.
I was sad on there because, the Kraken don't have one yet because we're not, I was sad. I would have liked to. I'm telling you, Kraken people are dying for some merch. If they can get some jerseys out, stat.
I know. And I think what's going to happen, I think this is going to be wildly successful and they're going to do it again. And when they do it again, there were some mock-ups that they were doing where they could institute, because I don't know if any people that don't know the history of hockey in Seattle don't know this. Seattle actually won the first Stanley Cup awarded to a U.S. team. That's right. Before the Seattle Metropolitans won the Stanley Cup back in 1917, every Stanley Cup winner was north of the border. The Seattle Metropolitans were the first ones to bring it south of the Canadian border. And I think embracing that Seattle Metropolitans history and lineage will be an interesting play if they decide to go ahead and roll out a reverse retro going forward. They can bring out those striped Seattle Metropolitan jerseys, and maybe Reed can look one up and pop it here right on the video version. Maybe pop one of those striped Seattle Metropolitans jerseys up, but change the color scheme to represent the new colors of the Kraken. I think that will look interesting.
This was a the more you know moment with Paul.
I'm educating people like I do on Willhouse. Oh, guess what? This happened, and it's definitely cool. And another thing that I wanted to kind of, I'm on my soapbox.
That's good. You put this in the Google Doc it was the first thing. I go, Paul is on it.
I'm so upset by the amount of comments that have come online after the Marlins made their GM hire. Of course, Kim Ning is an exceptional hire. And people are just saying it's something stupid like, oh, this is the woke hire. This is the affirmative action hire. No. If a man had the resume that Kim had, they would have been a GM 15 freaking years ago. This woman has won World Series as an assistant general manager. She's been to numerous league championship series. She's been an executive with the Dodgers, with the Yankees, of course. That is the standard. You're an executive with the Yankees. You're in the upper echelon of executive jobs. So for people to say that this is an affirmative action hire, you need to check yourselves. You don't know anything about baseball, and you don't know anything about what this woman has done in her almost 20 years in the sport. This is a great hire. This is not a woke hire. This is a perfect hire, and it's a perfect time, and it should have been done years ago. And I'm so glad that Kim's got the chance to take the Marlins organization, which is on the upswing, thanks to, of course, Derek Jeter. And this is just great. This is just amazing. And I want all those people that are saying this is affirmative action to shut their mouths, because this is what needed to be done.
So she's the new GM of the Marlins.
Yes.
And so it's an Asian female that got
Yep.
hired and people were criticizing and saying that they did it for the publicity versus that they were doing it because she was calling. Just to give, I like context, just to give a little context. But it is, and I saw all the same stuff you did, right? I don't know if it was you sharing it or I saw it too, but like, yeah, but look at them, they're trying to get the gold star, or whatever, and it's like, no, it is okay to hire people because of qualifications.
Yeah, it's amazing what'll happen when you look at a resume. It's amazing what happens when you don't. And I know Jeter did have a relationship, not like a personal relationship, but a professional relationship when he was with the Yankees as a player and Kim was an executive with the Yankees. I know that there was a professional relationship there. I know that. So Jeter is familiar with her already. And her resume puts her over the top. Even if Jeter didn't have any knowledge of her in a professional setting like they do with the Yankees, there was a resume here. And that is the point, is that we shouldn't care about what looks good to, a crowd that's like demanding equality. This is equality, and it's talent, it's qualifications, all wrapped into one. So let's tone down this idea that this is an affirmative action hire. Shut up.
Yep. This
is a great hire. Yep. This woman should have been a GM 15 years ago. Kudos.
There you go. That's good. You got that in. I'm glad.
Yeah, I'm just, baseball is my sport. And I just wanted to address it. I thought that this would be the perfect forum, because I'm not really talking about it on Wheelhouse. So this would be the perfect forum to discuss this. And I think that, I guess I'm educating. I'm on a pulpit. I'm going to step back now. So we'll let you talk about something. You want to talk about something now, Reed? Because I'm done talking.
Here's my thing. So it's your birthday Friday today, day of the podcast. I saw this this week. We try to get The Rock's attention on here. A lot of XFL people try to get The Rock's attention. All you have to do is post a video of you cheersing a birthday with a bottle of Terramana, and The Rock will quote tweet you, because he did it.
But I'm not drinking anymore.
That's why we got to hypothesize here. So I'm just presenting you the facts, and you can do whatever you want with that. But these are facts. The facts are The Rock, owner of the XFL, owns a tequila company, Terramana. It's supposed to be really good. He also retweets people when they do birthday shots and post them on Twitter. So what do we do with this? Do we call Kent Shelby up? Is Kent Shelby coming in and doing a tequila shot? I mean, what are we doing here, Paul?
I will figure something out. I will figure something out on Friday. We have an interview for Wheelhouse on Friday, and I'll do something on Friday to kind of, give a shout out. And I mean, I don't know if I'm probably not going to finish a bottle of Terramana, but I don't know how much. I don't even know how much this is.
Are you drinking on your birthday or not at all?
No, I wasn't planning on drinking on my birthday.
Okay,
but if it means that we can publicize what we're doing here at the Markcast, I will do something with Terramana to some effect.
You can get a Terramana Blanco, $34.99 Total Wines. You can get a Resposado, $32.99 Bevmo.
You say that so white.
Pick up today. My wife's a Spanish teacher. It's okay. Pick it up today.
She should work with you on your Spanish.
I can't roll R's. Anyway,
I'm Puerto Rican. We can't roll R's either. It's a thing. Nydia makes fun of me for it all the time. She's like, "What was that you just said?" I'm like, "I know R's sound like L's, but reposado. I might pick up, a Blanco. I like a light, maybe mix a little margarita, and just kind of post a video and celebrate the Markcast." And,
let me post it. We need to post on the Markcast account.
Okay, I'll do the video, like a TikTok or some stupid crap.
Yeah,
and then
do a fleet.
No, I'm not doing a fleet. No, you could do the fleet. I'm not doing a fleet.
Okay.
I refuse to do fleets.
Yeah,
I am
that's stupid.
militant. I am standing against this. No fleets.
I texted you last night. We're in the bonus content now of the Markcast if you haven't figured that out yet. So I asked Dorothy last night because all this stuff came out with the fleet and people were freaking out. They thought it was dumb, all this stuff. And I said, I'm trying to even find the text. Where did I lose it? Did it not transfer to? Oh yeah, I asked Dorothy, I said, hey, so Twitter just announced that they're going to be doing stories, like Instagram stories on Twitter. What do you think it's called? And she goes, is it a Tweety? And that to be fair would make more sense than calling it a fleet. Is it because it's like a fleeting tweet? Is that why they're calling it that?
What they're calling it that.
Okay.
This is what we have Instagram for, or Snapchat. And I don't even use Snapchat anymore. That it just like died quickly. No. Once Instagram stole their idea, Snapchat kind of died a slow death. I don't even use a Facebook stories option that much. I use it maybe once a month, if that. No. If I think something really needs that audience, I'm like, I'll share it on a Facebook story. But other than that, like I'm not using fleets to do instant stories. That's just stupid. No. So stupid.
Terrible. Can I talk about my hats before we go?
Yeah, of course.
What do you think?
They're nice. I'm glad we got that all worked out.
And I got a bunch.
I was concerned. I was super concerned because we added them to the site, and I was like, I hope these don't mess up for Reed. And I'm glad that they're there.
So yeah, so these are all good to go. XFL show.com/merch. Mm-hmm. We have this nice green one, which it doesn't quite match the Dragons, but it's close.
It's still adjacent. It's still green adjacent.
We got this like cool maroon one.
That's very
pretty
nice.
Sick. That's like Clemson, right? Like Clemson, if you're right.
Clemson.
Like Clemson, isn't there a football team like the Clemson? They're like red.
Yeah, they have orange though.
Oh, okay. Well, it's like a crimson. Maybe you're a Wazoo fan. Don't tell Dorothy. We got this one. It's like a blue and gray. Looks good. And then we've got this one, which is what I had before with the effed up logo, but now it's all set. It's just like black and red. And there's lots of other colors. I mean, there's a ton of colors. Yeah, if you want like all red. Yeah, you want like all red.
Reed went crazy. Reed wanted all the options for colors. So I'm pretty sure this is not probably going to be the last hat purchase Reed makes. He's probably going to get every single shade under the rainbow. So it's good to see that they came out really well. I'm really impressed. I'm glad this was like a 13-week ordeal. It really was. And I'm glad they finally came out. I'm glad they're finally doing quality assurance. I'm glad they're finally happy about taking care. I'm glad they're finally proactive in taking care of their customers. So hats look great, Reed.
Dorothy,
thank you for all your hard work.
Yeah. Dorothy goes, what are you going to do with all those hats? I said, wear them on the podcast and in my life and just all the time. What do you mean?
It's advertisement, man. It's like you're going out to brunch, you're going to wear an XFL Markcast. People are going to say, what is the XFL Markcast? The XFL Shutdown. And then Reed can be the teacher instead of Paul for a change. Yeah. And Reed go, actually, and then explain the Markcast.
Yeah, I mean, they're really good hats. I mean, I kind of have my hood on, but you got they're good.
I love them.
They're good quality. So there you go.
So with that being said, we want to thank everyone for tuning in this week. We had a great episode. And of course, xflshow.com/review to review us. We prefer it. We prefer Apple Podcast, and we appreciate your reviews. Also, if you want to buy some of those hats, some shirts, xflshow.com/merch. Want to thank Brian Woods and
Kent Shelby
for joining us today. And next week, I promise I'll get my coffee before we record, and I'll be wide awake.
That'll be good. Thank you.
Later.